What's going on, everybody? Uncle Filthy, and welcome back to the Media Hub. Those of you who may know, I've been doing this for about 5 years on YouTube now. Now, what some of you guys may not know or may not even remember is that one of the first franchises that I dove into on this channel was A Nightmare on Elm Street. Those videos came out about 5 years ago, maybe to the day that you're seeing this if you're watching it on the day of release. But those videos I find are really hard to watch. The quality's pretty poor, the presentation is bullshit! But some of my thoughts may have changed on some of those films, so it's time to revisit Elm Street. Let's go.
1, 2, Fred's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. 7, 8, gonna stay up late. 9, 10, never sleep. I'm so scared.
One thing I think that we could all agree on to some level is that Wes Craven really did give slashers a shot in the arm with Nightmare on Elm Street. By that point in 1984, slasher films were coming out on a regular basis to the point where it was almost, I don't want to say nauseating, but there were just so many of them saturating the market that they had all sort of fallen into being the same film, basically released every couple of months, every couple of weeks. There's still a bunch out there that I've probably not even heard of, and yeah, I'm not afraid to admit that. But this is one where you'd sort of take that element of, alright, you've got these young people, young vulnerable people, we're going to put them in this position where they're going to be killed off by a boogeyman. But wait! How about their vulnerable state is going to be in their dreams? There's more! And the slasher is going to be a man who can invade the dreams. That's one thing that I think really makes this film work in a lot of ways, because you sort of take what's been done, but you do it in a way that really hadn't been done up to that point. And when you look at the effectiveness of Freddy Krueger as a character all these years later, I mean, he still holds up as a favorite among horror fans. He definitely became a sort of a pop culture icon by the end point of the 80s. But a lot of it comes down to, I mean, shit, really everything about Freddy. His look, his manner of speaking, the way he carries himself. Just the charisma that Robert Englund would bring to the character.
Please, God.
This is God.
It's very well established that Freddy Krueger is one of the legitimately most terrifying horror film villains of all time. Easily one of the most terrifying slashers when you think of who he is and what he does. Just his being able to come at you in your nightmares when you're at your most vulnerable. That's scarier than shit to think about. His look is iconic, you know, he's got the burnt face, the sweater, the fedora, the glove, the whole 9 yards. I think that Freddy definitely is one of the coolest looking ones, and when you add to the fact that he will taunt you as he's killing you, or as he's hunting you down, that really just adds a whole extra level of intimidation. Because I think, next to being killed, I think the last thing we want is for somebody to talk shit to us while they're killing us. That's one thing that I think really makes Freddy terrifying. Of course, his power to infiltrate and manipulate your dreams, that's pretty damn terrifying too. Of course, his backstory also is really terrifying, really dark.
You want to know who Fred Krueger was? He was a filthy child murderer who killed at least 20 kids in the neighborhood. A bunch of us parents tracked him down after they let him out. We found him in an old abandoned boiler room where he used to take his kids. Took gasoline. We poured it all around the place and made a trail of it out the door. Then lit the whole thing up and watched it burn. He's dead, honey, because Mommy killed him.
Wes Craven originally wanted to go a little bit darker with it. That's the sort of field that they wouldn't really explore until the remake. But on top of the uniqueness of Freddy, the whole story is really unique too. Again, going back to, you have the killer who comes to you in your nightmares, and you die in the dream, you die for real. That was really, I think, a step forward in the right direction for slashers. And, you know, just as a film on its own, I think it's a really brilliant, really unique story. Really interesting because of the way you sort of inject this sort of local trauma into the whole thing. Maybe gonna try to do some sort of big brain discussion on Nightmare on Elm Street at another point. But I think that's interesting that that's one thing that's sort of brought into this film. You have Nancy's parents who had sort of taken justice into their own hands and taking Freddy out when he was a human. And, you know, sort of the way that he comes back to take revenge on the parents who had killed him for, you know, killing kids in the first place. I don't think Freddy really understands how payback works. Just something about that, it's, you know, it's really a revenge story at the end of the day, but you have that sort of fantastical element of the nightmares being sort of the gateway to death. It's pretty cool. And in using nightmares as sort of the backdrop for a lot of the scares in this film, you know you're going to have some pretty creative deaths. The way that the kill scenes work in this film, I think we all know they're all mostly some pretty great kills in the first film. Of course, Tina and... Glenn's kill. Those are kind of going to be the top tier for this film, and pretty much on the high end of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise altogether. And one thing that's really interesting is how Freddy's able to kill you in your dream and make it look like some sort of freak accident, or in the case of Tina's death, make it look like somebody else was responsible for it. When Rod dies, naturally that looks like Rod did himself in. When you already have this really disturbing story, what I think really helps to make this film even more unsettling is sort of the way that it's shot. When it's in the dreams, you can see the dreamy quality to it. There's almost like a weird it's almost like there's a weird filter going on in there, you know. They didn't really have stuff like that back then that I know of, but there's this really weird otherworldly feeling in some of the dreams. And, you know, you've got some weird random shit going on, just all these strange noises, all the sound design in the nightmares.
Tina? Where's your pass? Screw your pass.
Hey, Nancy. No running in the hallway.
And then you add Charles Bernstein's music on top of that. I think it just really creates this really unsettling effect that, you know, really does help bring the nightmare sequences up to a whole new level as a viewer. And when you're watching it looking for these things, it just hits that much harder, I think. One thing that also makes this film even more effective is how Freddy Krueger is used in the film. I think he has like between 6 and 8 minutes of screen time. And I think the underutilization of Freddy in the movie is Really a brilliant move. It kind of reminds me of Jaws, where, you know, you don't really see a whole lot of the shark until we get closer to the end of the film. Freddy Krueger operates in that same way a little bit, and one thing that's really cool too is how he starts off as menacing but a little playful at the beginning of the film, and as the body count starts to rise, he gets a little more mean. He starts to get meaner, much more angrier, and ultimately scarier. I think that sort of collecting this body count really gives him that power, and that's something we will find in later films down the line, is that the more people fear him and the more he's able to kill people, the stronger he will become, and you sort of see the birth of that in this film. Well, it's a pretty cool detail there. Well, Nightmare on Elm Street is a movie I've been watching for a really long time. It was one of the earlier horror films I'd seen. I think anyone who's been around here for a while knows that Halloween 6 was dead stop the first horror film that I saw. A couple of the Child's Play movies and Psycho 3. But another one of those early guys was A Nightmare on Elm Street, and this was one that my parents had on cassette around the house, and it was this one in part 2 in a little sort of a double VHS pack, and it really caught my eye. And I had seen this thing on Mad TV with Robert Englund, so I kind of had this idea of who Freddy was.
Huh?
Krueger. The Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Oh, I've never seen any of those. But I do remember you from V. You played Willie the kind alien. I loved Willie. I did.
Who are you? Robert Englund.
Oh, the guy from V.
I'm the actor who plays Freddy Krueger in all 7 Nightmare on Elm Street films, for crying out loud! Everybody just remembers me from V. I've done 50 movies. I'm about to be bludgeoned to death. It's probably going to say on my tombstone, R.I.P. Robert Englund. He's the guy from V.
And I eventually got to a point where I wasn't too terrified by the cover art of these first 2 films and decided, you know what, it's time to watch these. And when I did, it really changed what I figured horror movies could be, because it's like, you know, you look at Chucky, you look at Michael, and you look at Norman Bates. They follow a pretty similar pattern there, where even though Chucky's a doll, you know, it's still these 3 guys going at people with a knife. And Freddy was on some whole other different level there. And as the years would go on, you know, I would come to watch the rest of the Nightmare on Elm Street films and really start to fall in love with the series. And honestly, when I watched the first 2, I was pretty quickly made a Fred head, even though those were the only 2 films I had really any basis for who the character was. And you know, I can't remember how terrified I may have been from watching these, but I do remember they did have quite an impact. And when you consider the street that I lived on as a kid was called Elm Court, it really it put a whole little cherry on top of what these movies were for me. Another thing too, on top of the story and the music and everything else that really makes this film work, are going to be the characters. I'd sort of be remiss to not mention Nancy Thompson at the very least. Definitely one of horror's most badass final girls. I think Heather Langenkamp really gives a great performance. She seems very real, very down to earth. Like, she doesn't seem like a character in a movie. She makes Nancy seem like a very real person. And her parents are both played pretty well. I still feel that her mom has got a very soap opera presence. And anytime she's on screen, it just sort of... it feels like we're in sort of a daytime soap opera whenever Nancy's mom's on screen. But I really loved the scene where she's telling Freddy's backstory about how the parents burned him alive. That's still, I think, one of the best scenes in the franchise. John Saxon probably has one of the coolest performances, even if he's not too quick to listen to Nancy and try to help her out, sort of in denial about, oh yeah, Freddy can't come back at you, sweetheart, he's dead, you know? He's very much based in reality with his thinking there, which is understandable, because I think if somebody told me they were being attacked in their dreams, I'd probably wave it off too. The other supporting cast members I think are pretty great for what they bring to the film. Tina and Rod are a lot of fun. Glenn is fun with the big screen debut of Johnny Depp. It almost parallels in a way Kevin Bacon and Friday the 13th, you know? I think we were talking about that in our Friday the 13th live stream over on the Movie Misfits channel. It's just crazy how, like, in all the big three, actually, you have the veteran actor and this rookie who will become the next big actor, you know? I don't know, it still just blows my mind that Johnny Depp's in this. And I've been watching this movie for damn near 25 years. Hey guys, gonna interrupt myself real quick. Don't know how well that's gonna work. But anyway, I thought while I'm editing this, I had an idea to incorporate a little piece from the original version of this video, the one I did back in 2020. I figured, hey, bring this little snippet out, throw it in here. So I'm gonna present to you a little bonus feature that I used to put in all my videos back at that time. Gonna throw this in here and we'll see how this works.
And also, seeing how this is a Nightmare on Elm Street review series, I have 3 new bonus materials to tack on here. First, the favorite dream sequence. This is another tough one because there are so many iconic dream sequences in this film. And this is probably the most memorable one. Nancy's sitting in her classroom and she sees Tina in a body bag coming up to the class. Nancy's in the middle of an English lecture. She just sees Tina in a body bag, calling for her. She follows her out into the hall and the body bag's getting dragged down the hall. She runs after it, bumps into the hall monitor.
Where's your pass? Screw your pass.
Hey, Nancy. No running in the hallway.
Fucking love that shit. But the other 2 features, we have Spotting Shay. This is a fun one, because there's actually 2 marks on it for this film. We have Bob Shay, the producer of the film. He offers his voice in a voice-only cameo, reporting the death of Tina on the news the morning after. Right before Nancy goes to school, you hear him talking on the news. This might be cheating, but Bob's sister Lynn is in the film, and she worked on a lot of the early New Line films with Bob Shay, obviously. But she has the classic role of Nancy's English teacher. She has probably about a minute of screen time in this film. And then, this is the last of the new features. I call it the Freddy Quipper, which is basically my favorite line spoken by Freddy. My favorite Freddy quip in the original Nightmare on Elm Street is going to be during Tina's nightmare when she's walking down the alley and she sees Freddy for the first real time. She says, "Please God." And Freddy, being the smartass he is, puts the glove up to his face.
This is God.
One of Freddy's best lines, not only in this film, but in the whole franchise, I'm going to bet.
Yeah, Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street was no doubt a game changer. Definitely course-corrected the slasher subgenre, and I think even more broadly the horror genre as a whole. Definitely gave horror a good forward momentum for the 80s. And I feel like in some way it sort of gave the more generic slashers better footing to step on. It's like, alright, this one has come, sort of cleansed the palette of what these slasher movies are. We can go back to making these more generic ones. And, you know, there was just that, it was refreshing enough to allow the subgenre of slashers to keep going forward. And I think, again, more wholly allowed for horror to keep going in the 80s. And here we are over 40 years later. It's still one of the most beloved horror films, I think. And I think definitely still inspires other horror filmmakers to keep making films in a similar vein. Even if they're not taking the whole, oh yeah, you die in your dreams, you die for real. No, it sort of lives on, I think, in modern horror films where you have these fucking bizarre supernatural events going on. There is going to be ideas of an otherworldly killer, and yeah, it just kind of allowed for, if you're not even making a direct slasher, but something that's kind of has slasher elements, but definitely wants to play more on the bizarre, psychological, supernatural. A lot of those I don't think would have existed without A Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street I'd safely put within at least my top 10 slashers of all time. I'd definitely put it in probably top 20 horror movies of all time. It might even exist somewhere on my top 100 movies of all time. It's one that I really, really enjoy watching. It's obviously one of my favorites. I mean, to put it in all three of those categories, it's definitely a life-changing film in some ways, you know, especially depending on what point in your life you do watch this one. Where I've been watching this for damn near 25 years. It's like I can't imagine a life without having seen this one. And, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me to think of life without A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a film that I'd say comes highly recommended if for some reason you've never seen this and you're watching this video. Go out there and watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. What are you doing? But at the end of the day, man, I gotta give A Nightmare on Elm Street 4.5 marshmallow-filled staircases out of 5. So that was my look back at A Nightmare on Elm Street, guys. Sort of a different format in terms of review where, as opposed to just talking about the story, I'm just going through kind of the big things that I really like and take away from this film. Seeing as how I'd already done these videos before, kind of wanted to go at it a little bit different. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching. Be sure to do what you do down below. Play with the icons. Let me know what you think of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Is this one of your favorites? Is it overrated? What do you think? Go ahead and let me know down below. Again, play with every other little icon down there. Do what you do with those. And I will see you guys in the next one.
Yeah.